Hey everybody, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Beekeeping for Newbies. Thank you so very, very much for being so doggone good looking. I do appreciate you. And as always, feel free to reach out, Jeff at beekeepingfornewbies.com. That's NEWBEES.com. Today we're going to do our part 2 of our swarm trapping episode that was released yesterday. We just had so much info in there, and I figured instead of trying to jam it all into one episode, we'll split it up, and you still get the same content. We'll just spread it over 2 days. And as a reminder, don't forget to check us out over on youtube.com/at Beekeeping for Newbies. We'll have a Bee Buzz episode coming out tomorrow on Wednesday, and there will be another episode released on Thursday. So now let's get back to part 2 of our swarm trapping discussion. So as you're making all the plans about where you're going to put it, how you're going to get it there and all that, I want you to also be thinking about some other things. Think about when it's time to remove it, it's going to be heavier. So just, again, be mindful of that. If you can have an assistant, somebody to help you out, that would be great. Make a plan for how you're going to keep the lid on. With, some people I've seen get very creative and they put little kind of almost like bungees with little hooks. So you just walk up, hook your little hooks on, it gets bungeed down. I just stick with the same $4, $5 per pack, Harbor Freight 4-pack. And I just pre-cut them to size. That kind of helps because you're going to have all this extra nylon material. I cut them to size so that I have about an extra 2 feet maybe. And I just go up and I put 2 straps, one on the left, one on the right, strap it down, and then I unstrap it from the tree and bring it down. But think about all of these things up front. Kind of do like an old school, like backwards planning kind of thing. Like, okay, there's a swarm in the tree and I want to get this down. What's that process going to look like? Oh, okay, I'm climbing the tree, so I probably want this, I want that. Just kind of plan through it because you'll thank yourself for that later on. Now, where are we going to put them? So we've already talked about, rough heights. Like I said, 8 to 10 feet is what I like. 6 feet, 7 feet, whatever works for you. Some people will tell you the very detailed specs of what you need to have. Well, you should be so many feet away from your apiary, and you want to make sure it's in the shade. You need to have it in the sun. It needs to face east. All these other things. Like another one that someone said, put it near a water source. I would say that there are areas that bees will naturally kind of traverse as they're going to and from, different locations. It's really, really hard unless you're kind of an expert in bee navigation and things. It's hard to really kind of pinpoint that. You can't see where they're flying really unless they're in a swarm. The general kind of guidance and rules that people would tell you that I think is pretty good, good information is anytime there's a border, a transitional border of some sort. So you may have like a road, just a road that goes through an area, and you'll have like woods on both sides. Well, that's an area where the bees may be traversing that area to quickly move, between forage. Anytime you have like a field and you may have like a lamp post or some kind of a post or a tree that is right there by a field, those usually do pretty well. I do try to face mine again to that east, southeast if I can, but that's just to provide kind of maximum sun on the entrance. One thing you kind of don't want to do is put them in like the middle of the woods. Like you go into the middle of a really densely wooded area and then put them up in a tree. It's not that you can't catch a swarm. It's just those areas that are really densely wooded, they're going to tend to have like a lot more spiders and things that are going to be catching them on the way into and out of their new home. So they like to have a space where there's plenty of room to, they want to make sure they can have a good, safe approach when they're coming into land and, during landing and takeoff and getting air traffic control clearance and all of that. They don't want to have to worry about a lot of things that are going to be harassing them on their way in. So the more perches you have available for potential birds that may want to eat a bee, or the more places you have where spiders and carnivorous insects may want to easily attack them and launch their attack from, those are areas you're going to want to avoid. Edges of fields, edges of roadways, things like that. Those are things that will kind of help stack the odds in your favor. So the next on the list is going to be talking about timing. For the most part, I would say I'll work my way up from the south. If you are in the south, and I would say probably anything from really at this point, anything in the South Carolina, if you're on the level with like South Carolina and further down, so Georgia, Alabama, I almost said Montgomery, but Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, Texas, all through the South there, your traps need to be up. You should have already had them up. Honestly, I think that I was talking to a guy down in Alabama a couple weeks ago. He put his up in January. And I know we had one of our Discord members yesterday in South Carolina. They literally were out doing an inspection, planning to do a split, and the hive, like 2 colonies over, swarmed on them while they were working right there in the yard. So if you are anywhere in the South, your traps should already be up. My personal goal, again, this is Southeast Virginia, Northeast North Carolina, I'm targeting 1 March. I really want them to be up by 1 March. Now, like I said, I've got 4 box traps up right now. They need to get freshened up and baited and everything, but they are up. And then they're not up because I'm so cool and I'm on the top of things and I'm really on my game. They're just up from last year, and I never took them down because that's how I roll. Get them cleaned up, put them back up. But I recommend definitely, if you are in my area now we're crossing over from that January, February. So if you're like Maryland, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Kentucky, Virginia, like all of that area south, you guys need to get them up now. They need to go up now because I know a lot of people are seeing a lot of swarm cells. And it's just a matter of time. Particularly where I am now, we've had that first burst of hot, nice weather for a few days. I promise you, we will have swarms in my neighborhood and through the area. Within the next week, I wouldn't be surprised to see the first 1 or 2. Within 2 weeks, most definitely. And I think that it is definitely possible to have seen or caught 3 to 4 of them just in the month of March alone. That's just the way it is. I'm really hoping that I can catch a swarm from the bees that are in the tree in my yard right now. So it's a funny story because my neighbor just down the road, I saw the hive, in his yard, and I still haven't talked to him about it. I feel bad because I really should have that discussion. But I saw him one day and they were just bearding. They were all over the front of the hive. And I just said, oh my gosh, that colony is definitely going to swarm. It was like, I don't know what it was, like the 1st of April, something like that. And it was a massive colony. It was on a double deep. I think they might even had a medium on top of it. And I thought that colony is going to swarm. And it was like 2 days later, they swarmed to my house. So what I was thinking is how cool would it be to catch that original queen of his and, get her back into my apiary. So, unfortunately, they don't really, in my experience, and again, everyone's experiences are different, they don't typically like to swarm where they are, right? They don't want to be in competition with their ancestors, with the daughter queen and the new colony that she's going to be raising from the existing location. They usually don't want to be in a place to be competing with them. So they do like to go out and find a place where they can, establish their own home. But, that being said, that particular location was only about maybe 250, 300 yards away from where they originally came. So, they will take whatever is best for them given a certain set of circumstances. Okay, so again, anything from Pennsylvania, Maryland, West Virginia, Kentucky, all of us down in South, you need to have yours up now. If you are further up, you're into that, New York, Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin, kind of along that line. You guys have a little more time, but I would say still, it doesn't hurt to get them up now. You can put them up early and it's not going to hurt anything. But you probably by 1 April, you want to have them up because I think you guys are going to be cooking with Crisco probably by early to mid April. So that would be a good idea. All right, now here is the $1 million question. What do I do once I catch my swarm? So this is an area where, as with everything in beekeeping, you're going to ask 10 people what they think and get 15 different answers. Here is what I do. And then I will tell you what some other people recommend. So let's say because I am at my house here and I have traps at my house, I'm outside every day for one reason or another. I will usually see scout bees poking around in advance of a swarm. They don't just kind of pop up. I usually have a little bit of a heads up. But let's just say that today is Monday and I go out today and I see a lot of scouting activity and nothing comes of it really today. And then tomorrow I go out there and 10, 11 a.m., the swarm shows up. What I'm going to do is basically leave it alone. Obviously, I'm going to get this, the video camera set up and try to catch anything I can on video. And if I can do any kind of a live stream and catch the actual swarm coming in, that's a really cool event. Swarms coming and going is just a neat thing to see. So, of course, I'll try to catch that on a live stream if possible. But just as a general kind of, guidance, I don't really do anything. So they arrive on Tuesday. Great. Welcome to the neighborhood. And I kind of leave them alone. I will usually by like Saturday or Sunday. I'm going to go up at about 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and I'm going to turn the little wheel on the entrance to the closed position so there is air coming in and out, but they cannot leave. I'm going to set an alarm for probably about 5 o'clock in the morning, something like that, 5 or 6 a.m. And before it's daylight, I'm going to go to the tree. I'm going to go ahead and pull them down if I can safely do so. If you guys can't do it safely, wait till it's daylight, doesn't matter. But close them up the night before so they're all inside of the swarm trap. I will then take it down, move it over to where I want to put it up. Again, this is like something you want to watch out for too, is with the temperature. If it is really, really hot or really, really cold, don't put them out in an area where they're going to be exposed. So if you're already getting temps that are really hot and you're going to put them out in a field somewhere in the box, closed up or whatever, don't do that. If you want to, you can just bring them up against the house or put them in the garage or whatever you want to do, but keep them closed up. And again, you don't have to do the whole get up at 5 a.m. or whatever. You can just get up, go out, close them, and then go back to bed if you want, whatever works for you. But once you have daylight and it's warming up, because I don't like to do this when it's too cold. I prefer it to kind of be like 70 or above if possible. But somewhere usually around that 10 a.m. time, I will go out, get all the boxes set up to where I want them and where I want them to be. And then I will just take the swarm trap, go over to that location. I know that I've got 5 frames in the swarm trap. Let's say I'm using a 10 frame deep. I'm going to take the 5 middle frames that are in there out. And then I'm going to open the swarm trap. I'm going to smoke them just like I would a regular colony. Smoke near the entrance, pop the lid up, put a little bit of smoke in there, let them settle down. And then I'm going to move the frames in the exact same orientation into the swarm trap. So frames, 1 through 5 in the swarm trap are now going to be frames 3 through 7, something like that. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 3 through 7 will then go into the middle. And then I'm going to go ahead and close everything up and be done. Now, one thing that I would kind of recommend that might not be a bad idea is to treat this kind of like you would a package of bees. If you have a frame feeder, go ahead and put the frame feeder in there, or a top feeder, whatever feeder system that you like to use. But early like this, I like the frame feeder because I've got these. I just got some for free, actually. I'm an Amazon Vine reviewer, if you've ever heard of this. Amazon, basically, you sign up for this thing. You have to be invited to be a part of it, but you do reviews on stuff, and they just, whatever's available, you say, I want that. If it's available in their free thing or whatever, you just say, I want it. They send it to you. You do a review on it. You get to keep the item. I've been keeping an eye out for bee stuff forever. I finally got 2 of the 2-frame Bee Castle frame feeders. So get a good frame feeder, put those in. And the nice thing with those is, these particular ones, they take up 2 frame spaces and they're solid. So they're taking up a lot of space that would normally kind of have to be heated. Well, that's 2 frames taken care of. Now I've got an 8-frame setup. 5 of them came from the nuke. So then I've got 3 other frames that are probably just foundation. Maybe I put drawn comb in there if I have it available. But if not, you just use what you have. And that gives them a food source to have inside the hive. That way, if you get a couple of days of rain, or you get, like we're all probably about to experience now, we've had a couple of days in the 60s and 70s, and now it's about to turn around and be back in the 20s and 30s again for a whole lot of people. And I'm sorry you guys have to go through that. It's painful, but that's a situation where having resources inside the hive is helpful. Now, when it's really cold out, you kind of don't want to leave that sugar syrup in there. If it's just overnight one day or whatever, don't worry about it. They won't mess with it. And then as it warms up the next day, they'll take it in. But it's really, really great. If you've caught a swarm and it's already swarm season, hopefully it's generally kind of warm enough anyway. Just like if you installed a package of bees, you have that syrup in there. And if you have just some rain, any kind of conditions that don't allow them to get out and forage, they can continue consuming that syrup, drawing comb. You want them drawing comb as quickly as possible because that queen needs to lay eggs, because you've got a lot of bees that need to be replaced. So that's kind of my approach. Now, I'll give you a couple of tips that some other people do and will recommend. One thing that people have done, and I like this idea, I've never done it, but I think it's a really great idea. Bees, particularly nurse bees, those young bees, when a new worker emerges from the cell, her first role is a nurse bee, and that nurse bee's job is to care for developing brood. That's their sole purpose in life. They are very fond of, they love brood, they want to be around brood, they want to protect brood. Their whole life is, what can I do to make the brood happy and want to be a part of our colony? A lot of people will take a swarm, and once the bees get into it and they've kind of started to establish, they say, okay, I'm here, this is our new home. 24, 48 hours later, they'll drop a frame of brood. I would recommend like open brood that they can see, and good pheromone, strong brood pheromone. But they'll drop a frame of brood into that swarm trap from one of their existing colonies. And that really helps to bind those bees to that location. They say, well, geez, we've got all this brood. I mean, everything is here. Let's find a way to make it work, because sometimes they will come to your swarm trap and you think, oh, this is amazing. $200 worth of free bees. How cool is that? And then they don't like it, and there's nothing holding them there. And they will basically just use it as sort of a roof over their head until they find something better, and they will pack up and go somewhere else. I've seen that happen, unfortunately, several times. But again, the more things you do to stack the odds in your favor, the better off you'll be. So, using wax foundation and using existing comb, a good lure, all those other things. But that is one trick that I've heard a lot of people have good success with. Now, what a lot of folks will do is they will not touch that swarm trap for 10 days, 2 weeks, sometimes even longer. You really got to pay attention, because there's a couple of things that are going to happen or that can potentially happen. Number one, the frames that you're putting in there are they are a full deep-sized Langstroth frames. There is about an extra 4 or 5 inches below the frames before you get to the bottom of the swarm trap. Once they draw up a lot of that comb and they don't have any more space, they're going to go below the frame and they're going to start drawing comb off the bottom of the frame. Now, some people get a little freaked out and they're like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. What do I do? There's actually kind of a couple of cool things you can do with it. Let's say that they did that. Let's say you had 3 frames that they just went ahead and drew it down. It wasn't quite touching the bottom of, the box, but it is, maybe it's coming down, 3 or 4 inches off the bottom of the frame. A lot of times they will lay that up with eggs. And I have cut a big piece of that out and taken just a piece of wax foundation and pushed it up into the plastic foundation. And I take that section of comb and kind of push it up into it, securing it a little bit along the top of the frame. And now what you have is a whole bunch of eggs, maybe some young larvae, on this frame that you can drop into a colony to make queens. And what you can do is you just take a regular nuke, make a nuke with no queen in it, drop a few frames of brood in there, young nurse bees all over them, brood about to emerge, and then stick this one frame in the middle that has nothing but eggs. And they will go through and they will make emergency queen cells from that. And you can go ahead and just make another colony. That's kind of a cool thing to do with this swarm trap. You just got the swarm trap, you already have a queen, and now you're about to go ahead and make another free colony, from that. You may pull one frame from that, or you may just let that build up and pull from others. But in addition to, making use of some of that comb, you want to be mindful that they will build this out really quickly. I have seen swarms sometimes that are massive. I mean, just huge swarms. And you get this many bees showing up, they can draw up 5 frames of foundation, completely lay it all up, and within like 2 weeks, you'll have the beginning signs here and actually start to see swarm cells. They will be incredibly fast. Now, it doesn't happen in every scenario. Not all conditions are optimal for that, but under the right conditions, they will build up incredibly quickly. So if you say, look, I'm one of those people who likes to let them stay for a while, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Let them stay, inspect it like you would a regular colony. Go in a week, move some things around, see how everything looks, put it back together. And you may say, hey, look, I'm going to wait for them to draw up 3 of these pieces of foundation into comb, and then I'm going to push them to the outside and bring the outside one to the middle. And then once they draw that up and start laying that one up, then I'm going to put them into a regular hive. As long as you've got a plan, that's the only thing that matters. Don't worry about what everybody else wants to tell you. This is the only way it's ever done, blah, blah, blah. It'll be fine. Let's just say worst case scenario. They go to the swarm trap. Like, for example, I've got some of them that are, good ways away from me. And if I get tied up and I can't get down there, I don't care. Because worst case scenario, they will swarm and they will go somewhere else, and I'll come back a week or two later and I'll just take whatever's left behind, right? It's still free bees either way. If you miss them, you miss them. But ideally, you're having a plan, you're keeping an eye on them, and you're moving them when it makes sense for you to move them. And again, from there, you can go, I would not go into a single nuke. You could take a swarm trap and then take the 5 frames from that and put that into a nuke, and then add another nuke box on top of that, just to keep everything, if you want to keep them more vertical. And if you would prefer to have them, build up a little bit more within that space before you give them a bigger cavity, you can definitely do that. But again, those colonies are very explosive in the spring, and they will fill up single nuke boxes very quickly. So just think about all the options up front, and you can always come into our Discord room and, drop a note in there and say, hey, this is kind of what I'm looking at. What do you guys think? But really, and I can't stress this enough, I get emails every day. That's probably one of my favorite things, honest to God. I really love communicating with all of you guys and hearing your stories and people telling me about the cool things they're doing. I get excited about that. And in a lot of these messages that I get, it's one thing if somebody says, hey, I was talking to another new beekeeper and they said this. And I would say, well, probably maybe they haven't quite done enough research in that space. You might want to maybe look at a different approach. I'm always going to be happy to tell you my opinion, but my opinion doesn't matter. Like, you're going to have a different experience. You're going to have different goals. You're going to have different objectives. So figure out what your goals and objectives are, and then find people who will help you align your strategy to that versus just following other people. Just following what other people do is kind of a recipe for disaster, quite frankly. You're going to spend money you don't need to spend, do things you don't need to do. I'm going to give you guys an example. I'm trying to see if I can do this in a way that doesn't throw anybody under the bus, because this was kind of bad. Yeah, I'm not going to give all the details, but I will tell you the scenario. Somebody was advised the other day, and they asked me, they said, hey, I was advised that once an egg is laid into a queen cup, that colony is 100% going to swarm and you can't stop it. Now, again, if you're a first-year beekeeper and you're like, yeah, somebody told me this, so, and then the other person says, oh, I hadn't heard that. Okay, well, thanks for sharing. I get that, right? You're both new. You're trying to figure things out. If you're an air quotes experienced beekeeper, it's critically important that you give good information. Now, I'm going to be transparent with you guys. I forgot about this too. Like, I have been going back through different notes and transcripts and different things. And there are things that have either one of two things have happened. Either I zoned out, because I do kind of zone out sometimes. Either I zoned out and completely said the wrong thing. This has happened a couple of times. Or I was misinformed, or my philosophy has changed. There have been things where I used to do it one way, and I've told you guys, hey, this is what I do. And I've changed differently based on research I've found, based on experience, based on different things. I'm going to have to actually put together, I have notes where I'm going to be putting together episodes after we get through the spring rush of me going through and saying, hey, here are some things I'd like to correct, right? But you have to, as a professional, a person who shares information with others, you have to constantly be striving for excellence and maintaining a standard. And when you tell people things, and I get it too, I understand that it's common where you hear something and you think you're hearing it from somebody reputable. So then you go and say, well, this is the way this is. Well, somebody thinks, well, they said that with confidence. I'm pretty sure that they must be right. And that's not always the case. So I'm going to go ahead and answer that one right now. I answered it in email, but that's not the case. Okay. An egg is laid into a queen cup. So for those of you not familiar with this, a queen cup is a small round cup about kind of the head of maybe like a Sharpie marker or some kind of a marker. It's about the thickness of a large pen or something like that, or the diameter of a large pen. And these usually going to show up near the bottom third or so of a brood space or even the frame. But it looks like a little circle cup. And what you're looking for in these is you want to look up into them and see if you see an egg. Because what that means is that the queen has kind of run out of regular laying space and they've told her like, hey, queen, we need you to lay something over here. because we're going to make another queen. So she's like, yeah, no problem. I got you. She goes over there. And that's actually the dialogue that they have. It's very detailed. But she goes over there and she drops the egg inside the queen cup. Now, what we then say with this is that this is now a charged queen cup, meaning that if left, to its own devices, they will raise it into a queen and you will have a swarming condition. My advice and my guidance has been, once that swarm cell is capped, it is game on. You are going to have a problem. You are going to have potential troubles in keeping them from swarming. That's going to be a real challenge. There are ways to mitigate it, but it's going to be tough. As long as everything is still open, you've got a really good possibility of stopping it. But just because an egg hit the queen cup does not mean it's unstoppable at all. Literally, if you just go by and you pinch every one of them closed, they can't swarm. They won't swarm. So that's just the simplest thing about it. I've got other episodes coming up where we're going to be, in fact, let me flip through right now. I will show you guys, I'll tell you about it. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to stay on my Monday, Thursday routine. And what I would like to do, because there are so many still outstanding questions, is probably do Monday, Thursday, and maybe squeeze the bee buzz in the middle on Wednesday. There's just so much going on. It's hard to keep up with everything. So here's kind of the list of what I've got kind of rapid fire coming your way. I've got at least 3 more bee buzzes that are going to be sprinkled in to get through these spring questions. I have first year beekeepers, kind of what you need to have ready and on hand. This is going to just go through all the stuff that you need to have to make sure you're ready to kind of tackle things as your packages and nukes and things are showing up. I do have choosing your hive setup in here. Some of these things I wish I had gotten to earlier, but unfortunately we just didn't get them. But it's going to be going through and talking about the Langstroth hive and different types of configurations, all the hardware you need, things you maybe want to consider, and then things that are nice to have. So we'll go through all of that. We're going to go through frames. We're going to talk about all wooden with wax foundation. We're going to talk about wooden with plastic foundation, all plastic, pros and cons, all the cool things with that. We have another episode about feeding, just going through all different types of feeding systems, feeding plans, methods, and all of that. I'm going to do a full revised version of my kind of 2026 Varroa mite treatment plan options. I really want to talk to you about this again because it's so very important. If you listen to, watch, pay attention to no other episodes, I really need you to get dialed in and locked into the Varroa treatment, regimen. There are a lot of people who say, I don't treat. Okay, cool. But if you don't have something else going on, you are going to have problems. Like I'm all for people who are like, oh, I have this natural treatment plan and I'm using, whatever, like a pinch of certain types of spices mixed together. I love it. If someone comes to me and they're like, yeah, I took some oregano and some garlic and I, boiled it down and made it into what do they call it? Tincture? I'm not an expert with that. Anyway, they make it into something and they put that in their beehives and it kills the mites. Tell me more. That's the kind of stuff that I love. But if you say I'm doing nothing, like your bees are going to die. You are going to become a Varroa bomb. Your whole community, all the bees in your area are going to be getting more and more. There's going to be more and more of a spread of Varroa within the community. The bees are going to be absolutely miserable. I mean, literally, I call it the HIV of the bee world. That Varroa mite's going to go in, get them sick, and then they're going to get all these other kinds of viruses, and they're just going to be so unhappy and miserable, and that's the life you gave them because you didn't take action. And when I say you, I'm saying me. I did this. I did the whole, it's not going to happen to me because I'm a super cool beekeeper and it's never going to happen. Oh, it happened. It happened in a way that was just so destructive. And it was because of my own arrogance. And just don't be like that. Find a plan. And if you say, I'm not going to do anything, cool. But you just got to understand doing nothing is setting yourself and everybody around you up for failure. Now, again, there are things like VSH, Varroa sensitive hygiene. There are things like that you can get queens that have that trait, and that is good, but that doesn't mean don't treat. It means, hey, they're really good at picking things out, but they still have limitations. You still have to monitor and keep an eye on things. I can rant on this all day long. We have an episode on installing bees, packages, nukes, all of that. Some inspection strategies for first-time beekeepers, swarm prevention tactics. These are like tracheal mites I have on the list. I've never covered. It dawned on me the other day. I'm like, I've never talked about tracheal mites. We only talk about Varroa, but I think it's worth talking about tracheal mites as well. I've got pests and predators on here. I have lists. I don't know, there's like 20 things here that I have put together. So these are all going to be rolling out at the 2 a week rate with some, bee buzzes sprinkled in there, and hopefully get everybody completely up to speed. But swarm trapping is really, really cool, and it's a lot of fun. And I think that, if you consider it, it's a cool kind of like side activity to do. It helps ramp up your season. Like if you're not getting if you're not getting your package bees until maybe early April, if you're not getting your nukes until May, this is kind of a cool way to jumpstart your apiary. I mean, it's a really cool thing. It's fun, and it's not that hard to do. You can, and of course you can buy swarm traps. You can buy the boxes if you're not handy, or you maybe live in an apartment, you don't have access to power tools and things. When I say live in an apartment, I recognize that like you're not going to put a swarm trap at your apartment, but there are a lot of places that will allow you to do like like on your balcony, you can have a small hive or whatever. So if you're in a place where you don't have access to tools and things, you definitely can buy them. It's just going to be really expensive. Like I said, the cost is about $20 a piece if you're making them. I'm sure they probably sell them for $50, $75, something like that. I have no idea. All right, folks, I have to stop now because I'm going to keep going. There's a million things on my mind, and I want to keep getting this information out because the spring is the most amazing time of the year for honeybees. So take care, be kind to one another. Remember that I love you. There's nothing you can do about it. We'll talk to you soon.